Oh, sure. And that place has more job. I got a good voice.
It's like his last week. So he was there 2 more days and gone.
Good evening. Welcome to Clay County Hospital. I'm Bob Sellers, the president of Clay County Hospital. I'm also the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce here in Flora. So on behalf of, needs to be up. Better? Okay. On behalf of Clay County Hospital and their board of directors, and also on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and their board of directors, we welcome you here tonight for this town hall meeting. I think this is going to be exciting. I think that we're going to go over the ground rules here for you in a second and let you know how tonight's going to function. And we look forward to the candidates and their answers to those questions. So again, on behalf of Clay County and Flora Chamber of Commerce, we welcome you and glad that you're here tonight. If you would, could you please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated.
Good evening, and again, welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming out. Thank you to the candidates for being here this evening for this town hall meeting. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of the format for tonight, in a minute we will begin the town hall with opening statements. Each candidate will get 3 minutes for their opening statement. When we get to the question part of the evening, each candidate will get 2 minutes to respond to the question. At the conclusion of the question portion of the debate tonight, each candidate will get 3 minutes for a closing statement. In order to keep our time schedule, we do ask that you hold your applause until the end of the evening. We also would ask no horns, bells, or other noisemakers, and if you have a cell phone with you tonight, please make sure it is silenced during the town hall meeting. So as we begin the introduction opening statement part, the candidates drew numbers, and I believe John drew the lucky number 1, which I think is 4 times in a row. So our first candidate to give his opening statement tonight is John Spencer. He has 3 daughters, 7 grandchildren, and a best friend, Twyla Bible. He owns and operates Complete Home Services doing drywall, doors, windows, siding, painting, trim work, and tuck point. He is a member of the Louisville American Legion and Louisville United Methodist Church. He has been the Clay County Democrat County Chair for 5 years, and for the past 5 years, he has been a member of the Illinois Democrat County Chair Association. Please welcome John Spencer.
I've got several priorities if I'm elected. The first thing is to get Route 50 right out here turned into a 4-lane highway. We need it desperately. We need to get it back on track to be a 4-lane highway. Also, I'm real interested in health care. I would like to get a plan passed, and I know that I can because I've talked to several of the legislatures. It is passable. It's a plan for early detection. You go see your doctor, and the doctor suspects there might be something wrong with you, but you do not have Medicare, you do not have Medicaid, you've got a large insurance deductible. Within 10 days, you could go get a CAT scan, x-rays. If something's wrong, you know it, then you can proceed from there and not wait until it's too late. This plan will pay for itself by the early detection and not letting something get completely away from you and cost a lot more money, and it'll save a lot of lives. I'm also would like to get a bill passed that would provide child care for all young mothers so that they could go back to school and get their education. We need safe child care for them, and we also need safe child care for young mothers working low-paying jobs. That they can't afford to pay a babysitter and then all their money go to the babysitter. It could be a reduced price for them, but young mothers going back to school need to get their education. We've got to get into the capital bill for our roads and our bridges, broadband internet. The money is there. We've just got to get into it. There's several areas in the district that have no broadband internet at all. It needs to be on all the farms. It needs to be in every town, every village. We've got to get it there. And we've also got to have safe bridges, or we're going to have roads going nowhere because there's a big sign that says bridge out ahead. We have to get into that capital bill. But that's kind of where we're at on that. There's so many things that we can do. So, time's about it.
The next candidate to give his opening statement is Adam Nieberg. Adam Nieberg was born and raised in Teutopolis. His parents, Phil and Stephanie, started their own small business in the garage of their home. Growing up, Adam experienced firsthand the struggles that many small business owners face in balancing family life with the hard work to turn their dreams into a reality. The value of hard work and the discipline it takes to run a business are life lessons Adam has carried with him his entire life. Faith, family, and the farm culture of rural Illinois define Adam. The 109th District is the heart of Illinois farming community. Adam's grandfather operated a small family farm. He understands the hardships our rural communities endure. Adam also works with farmers throughout the district daily. He is employed by Country Financial as a senior claims adjuster. For over 11 years, Adam has traveled extensively throughout the district working with those who live and work in our communities. Adam is a graduate of Teutopolis High School, and he holds a bachelor's degree from Eastern Illinois University. He and his wife Trina and two small children, Benjamin and Genevieve, reside in rural Dietrich, around the corner from the old family farm. They are members of the St. Isidore Catholic Parish and attend St. Aloysius Church. As your voice in Springfield, Adam will support the rights of the unborn, defend our Second Amendment rights, oppose tax increases, push for meaningful pension reform, fight for real spending reform, and stand up to the culture of corruption in Springfield. Please welcome Adam Nieberg.
Well, that just about sums it up. I think I can go home now. But yes, that is a little bit about me. And I do hold all those values very, very close to my chest. And if you leave here this evening, there's a few things I'd like you to know about me. A few things that I feel that you do need to know about me. Number one, I am pro-life. I've been pro-life all my life, and that's really what prompted me to get into this race. Last year we had some awful abortion legislation that was enacted in Springfield. And Trina and I, she's right here, my rock, she's my campaign manager, we thought and we prayed and we thought and we prayed, we thought, what can we do? How can we put our best foot forward and really make substantive change on the pro-life front? So we thought and we prayed about it. Then we saw that Darren Bailey was running for Senate. And we thought, there's our opportunity. That's what we need to do. We need to be a voice for the voiceless. Protect the rights of the unborn. And I will do that. I will not yield. I will not compromise. I am very pro-Second Amendment. And that's not just lip service. I have the endorsements of Dave Campbell and Brian Kibler. They started the Sanctuary County movement in Effingham County, and that has grown throughout the United States. I also have the endorsement, the state endorsement of the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police. And those gentlemen know where I stand on the Second Amendment and criminal justice reform. And lastly, my parents are right here, I'm very pro-business. When we can bring business back into Illinois, my dad has done it. He's opened up a shop in Dietrich, a candle factory. He has his business and it's growing in Illinois. And I'm glad he stayed here. I want to give people a reason to stay in Illinois rather than just saying my family's here. And that's it. That's not good enough. We need to do better. We need meaningful TIF reforms where we have teeth in TIF. So that means that we give businesses the opportunity, but we also will hold them accountable for being here and growing in our district. I look at Mount Carmel. I was there last night for a city council meeting. and America LLC is opening up a mental health care facility. Over 50 jobs brought through by TIF negotiations in Mount Carmel. This is going to bring jobs into our district. It is good. It is wonderful. You check my Facebook. It's great. But lastly, and most importantly, there's something everybody needs to know here this evening. My election is a referendum on the establishment. The establishment is outspending me 5-1. 5-1. And I'm here tonight to tell each and every one of you, you're going to hear words like compromise, get along, and reach across the aisle. Those are code words for abortion, higher taxes, and bad business in Illinois. I will not compromise. I will not yield. And I will outline my platform here for you this evening. And I hope you all agree with me. Thank you very much.
Our third candidate to give his opening statement tonight is Andy Hires. Andy is a native of Jasper County and a 1988 graduate of Newton Community High School. Andy graduated Olney Central College in 1990 with an associate's in applied science. After graduating, Andy moved to the state of Texas. Andy has worked in law enforcement for the past 26 years. He began his law enforcement career in January 1994 with the Port Arthur Police Department in Port Arthur, Texas. Andy graduated his police academy class as valedictorian. In 1997, he moved back to Illinois, where he continued his law enforcement career at the Richland County Sheriff's Office. In 2006, Andy was elected to the office of sheriff in Richland County, where he still serves. Andy is the longest serving sheriff of Richland County. Andy serves on several law enforcement related boards. Upon moving back to Illinois, Andy met his wife Trish and was married in October of 1998. Andy is active in his community and serves on the Olney Central College Foundation Board. Andy is a member of the Noble Lions Club, Olney Elks, National Rifle Association, VFW Auxiliary member, Olney Richland County Chamber of Commerce member. He is a Mason and a Shriner. Andy has attended Glenwood Church in rural Noble for 23 years and serves as a trustee on the church board. Please welcome Andy Hires.
Well, thank you all for having me tonight. I want to thank the Clay County Hospital as well, along with the Flora Chamber, for hosting this tonight. It's going to be a great event, I hope. Looks like we've got a pretty decent crowd for that. So let me just go a little bit on what he said there. I am a native of Jasper County. I was raised in Jasper County, in a rural part of Jasper County. I grew up in a farming community. We weren't farmers, but we lived out in the rural part where I assisted and worked on farms and done walking beans and baling hay and mowing yards, that type of thing growing up. From there, my folks bought a small business in Hidalgo, Illinois, which is on the north part of Jasper County. At that point, we moved into Hidalgo where they ran that business. My mother was a school bus driver for 35 years where she retired from that position. And my father, after running or selling the business, after about 15 years, he began managing grain elevators in Rose Hill and Hidalgo. From there, I did move to the state of Texas. That's where I got into my law enforcement career. It was a rewarding job down there. We investigated all types of crimes. There was officer-involved shootings probably once every 6 months. We had murders, homicides probably every month there. A lot of different types of sexual assaults and things of that nature as well. So got a lot of experience down there. Came back to Illinois in 1997, where I began my career there at the Sheriff's Office in Richland County. And I've been at that location ever since. I am proud to say that I am the longest serving sheriff of Richland County. From 2006 to currently, no other sheriff has served more than 10 years there at the Sheriff's Office. Some of the things that got me into this race, number one, I think this is this seat's not been open since maybe the early 80s. We've not had an open seat here. There's always been an incumbent running. So with that, I was asked to consider, had been asked prior to that, but was not interested in running against incumbents. So when the seat opened, I decided to put some consideration into that. My wife and I thought about it for a couple weeks. Our kids were on board a lot sooner than we were. They were immediately excited about it, but they grew up in the law enforcement campaigning cycles. So we thought about it. We decided that we were going to do it. Some of the reasons I got involved in this race was for law enforcement reasons. All across this nation, law enforcement has been under attack. And it's no different here in Illinois. There are many things that was causing us to want to fight for the citizens of this district. The abortion, as we mentioned already, was the most horrific, the tax raises that we've seen. I'm very conservative, and I will continue all those policies of conservative attitudes. We will hold the line on taxes, we will fight abortion, and we will fight any attack on our Second Amendment. Thank you.
Just a reminder, as we move to the question portion of the evening, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the various questions that we have tonight. Our first question: what are your thoughts on the graduated tax that will be on the ballot in November?
Okay, I am 100% against the graduated tax. For that matter, I'm against any tax increases that we can see in this state. We have a spending problem in the state of Illinois. We do not have a revenue problem. I encourage all the citizens of the 109th district not to be fooled by the so-called fair tax and vote no on the question on the ballot regarding the constitutional amendment. We cannot continue to tax our people that only encourages more spending. This tax will have the affluent leaving our state. They indicate that there's going to be possibly $3 billion raised by this tax, but we already see that much in additional spending coming down the pike. Our governor just requested that if we don't pass this tax, he threatened that he will withhold funding from our education programs. Do not be scared by those tactics. We cannot afford any more taxes in Illinois. By allowing the Constitution to be amended, it gives Springfield, the politicians in Springfield, the ability to raise your taxes at any given time. As we see higher earners leaving the state, and they will, the ones who can leave the state, the job creators will leave the state, and what that will leave is a void of taxes then. So then they will start changing that income tax so it starts taxing the lower and lower income folks to where we're all paying higher taxes. So when this is over, in the end, we do not want to support this tax. Make no mistakes, they will continue to spend our money as long as we give it to them. We do not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem that we got to get under control in the state of Illinois. Thank you.
I cannot, in good faith, go against 97% of the people. This bill will not raise the taxes on 97% of the people, only 3%. And that 3%, they have to make over $250,000 a year. We can take education out of property taxes, which means that we can lower property taxes close to half. Everybody'd like to see a tax reduction. If your property taxes drop 50%, that is a big tax deduction. There won't be an increase for anybody except that 3%. We must pass this referendum. 34 states have the progressive tax system. Only 8 have flat tax like us. There's got to be something good about the progressive tax. Washington, the District of Columbia, and our federal taxes are also progressive. Progressive taxes work. The taxes will not go up like everybody's claiming. If they do, it will be very, very, very minimal. As a matter of fact, we have the cheapest tax rate of all of our surrounding counties right now in income tax. We are below all of our surrounding states. So we've got to pass this tax. Thank you.
We can't vote for this. Plain and simple. We just can't. It's another tax. It's going to head us down in the wrong direction. We do have a tax and spend problem in the state of Illinois, and we cannot pass this. And as Republicans, we all have an opportunity. As conservatives, we all have an opportunity when this is on the ballot to please vote it down. because all it's going to do is just cause people to leave, continue to leave, and we're going to have that mass exodus that we have all continued to see over the last few years. Career politicians, establishment politicians want to pass this tax. Okay? They want it to be here to continue to drive businesses out of the state so they can continue their foothold in Springfield. So for example, in Missouri, if you make more than $8,424 per year, you pay the highest income tax rate of 5.4%. That's coming our way, folks, if something like this passes. Right now, if the legislator wants to raise taxes, they have to raise taxes on everyone. This all changes with the progressive income tax. They can pit one tax bracket against another tax bracket and raise everybody's taxes. We have an opportunity to say no. We have an opportunity to stand up and say, no new taxes, we're not going to do this. This is bad for Illinois, it's going to drive businesses out of the state. Illinois has the worst credit rating in all 50 states. Illinois has the highest combination of state and local taxes in the country. We have the second highest property taxes in the nation. We have the third worst funded pension system in the nation. So how is a new tax going to benefit? I can answer that clear as day. It will not. We have to cut taxes. We have to cut that corporate income tax on business owners so they want to stay in Illinois. We need meaningful spending reforms. And I will not raise taxes. That will not happen. The gentlemen that are behind me, Representative Blaine Wilmhauer, Representative Chris Miller, Representative Brad Holbrook, these gentlemen are supporting me and endorsing me because they know where I'm going to stand on taxes. They know what it means to be a true conservative and go up and say no. So you've got to ask yourself that question. We cannot vote for this. Thank you.
Our next question, we seem to be losing our historic downtown in many small towns. What will you do to help assist communities in bringing downtown back to life?
Well, we need to attack this problem on multiple fronts. First of all, I'd ask you all to shop local. Okay? If there's somebody in your community that needs help, please shop local, keep that local. And I've traveled all throughout the 109th District and got to many business owners, and I can almost tell them what they're going to tell me before they tell me. It's revolving around that $15 an hour minimum wage. It's going to get businesses to pick up and leave. I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. So we've got to fight against that minimum wage, because as it sits right now, if you have somebody at $15 an hour, when that comes to fruition, when that comes into effect, you've got overhead that you have to consider in that workers' comp. So you're going to be sitting somewhere around $22, $23 an hour just to have somebody standing there just to work. And you have a lot of turnover when it comes to these small businesses. So you're constantly cycling people out. They don't want to show up for work. They might want to show up for work, but we've got to keep that minimum wage down so we can keep businesses in Illinois. We need better policies. We need to work at the state and local level. And as your next state representative, I will work with members of the private sector to help revitalize our communities. Again, the TIF districting, opportunity zones, working hand to hand with business owners and the community to boost revenue to get people back in the state of Illinois. Because that's what we need. We need people back in Illinois. We need to revitalize our small businesses. We need to get things back on track, and we can't do it by raising taxes, and we can't do it by pushing people out the door. Thank you very much.
Our downtown areas are very vital to the survival of our communities. They are an important aspect of each and every one of our communities. These small businesses matter in our district. Most of the businesses making up our downtown areas are small businesses. We must look at sensible legislation. We got to have sensible legislation that will allow these businesses to keep more of their hard-earned money to reinvest back into their businesses. The minimum wage is definitely an issue that we have here. As Adam said, most of the people that we talk to that's owning small businesses are going to have to do one of three things. They're going to have to, one, shut their doors. They won't be able to provide. Or number two, they're going to have to raise their prices to such an extent that it may even drive customers to online services. Or number two, they reduce employment. So we have less jobs out there than we currently do. So we've got to find ways to possibly convince Springfield that we need to do more of a regional minimum wage. we've got to find ways for them to possibly let us set our minimum wage based on our area wages, our average area wages in our communities, instead of being set by the state. A $15 minimum wage might be all right in Chicago, but it's certainly going to kill businesses down here in downstate Illinois. There needs to be grants and other incentives along with responsible legislation to reduce burdensome regulations that will help all business grow the economy. We have several workman's comp issues that we can grow. I'm going to give an example in Albany where we could give grants and incentives. In Albany, they built a stage in the downtown area where they could have small concerts and gatherings. That has been very successful. They did that based on a grant. They're able to have those gatherings that brought people into our downtown area, and they spend their monies in that downtown area. So those are the types of things we need to be able to provide to downtown and small businesses, different types of incentives and grants. Thank you.
I like that.
Our downtown areas are just shells of their once former proud existence. We've got to get historical preservation to fix these buildings up. We can get grants to do this. We need to preserve history, and the buildings need to preserve the way they once were. Instead of citing a building because the tuck pointing is deteriorating, those buildings need to be tuck pointed, not just covered. Because once they're covered, we don't know what's going on underneath that cover. And there could be something dangerous there that we don't know about. They could be re-tuck pointed and last another 100, 150 years. And for the downtown areas, we could use some more parking areas in a lot of them, because people are used to going to the malls and out of town, or Walmart and this, that, and the other. Our downtown areas could be, instead of retail sales, be more law offices, insurance agencies, counseling centers, accountants, engineers, consultants, any organization or professional service that offers customized knowledge-based services. TIF grants can also help on this. And the minimum wage at $15 an hour will also help keep small businesses in business. Thank you.
Our next question is kind of a similar question and piggybacks off of our last one. There are many grants, tax abatements, and assistance programs offered to large corporations. What will you do to bring small businesses back to our community?
Small business cannot survive without good jobs. I can work with the governor. I know JB. I can work with him. And he truly loves Southern Illinois. You may not believe it, but he does. I can work with the Farm Bureau, the American Farm Bureau, large corporations, help the struggling farmer to develop products from hemp, industrial hemp. Over 25,000 different products can be made from this. We're lucky here in Flora, we got 2 empty factories. We got Southwar and GSI. Down in Fairfield, we got the old Airtex complex. We could put people to work manufacturing plastic bags to start with, like you get from Walmart or IGA or whatever. They're made stronger out of hemp, but will decompose in 6 months in a landfill. We could manufacture water bottles that will start decomposing in 12 months. Once these products are made out of this, there's still hemp left. We need another factory somewhere to use what's left over. Natural sugars, materials for batteries. These jobs would support small business and help our district as well as the entire Southern Illinois survive. We can bring people back in we'll have companies, once this gets going, they'll be willing and able to come back here, and people will start moving back. Thank you.
We need to incentivize. We need to give small business owners a reason to set up shop in our communities. We need to give them a reason to raise their families in our communities in order to provide jobs for our communities. Martin Sandoval just pled guilty to bribery charges. He took money from a red light camera company that killed legislation that would have banned red light cameras in non-home rural communities. I think one of the problems we have in Illinois is that insiders have bought access, and as a result of this corruption, it's become very difficult to attract new businesses in Illinois. The left, what they're doing, controlling the state. The first thing we need to do is stop the pay-to-play culture we have in Illinois. Next, we need to lower taxes. Illinois lost 50,000 people. 50,000 people because taxes are too high, and as a result, we are losing population. People are leaving. And you wonder, why are they leaving? It's because taxes are too high. It's because our financial and moral compass has decayed. Why would anybody want to stay here? It's because we cannot keep going down this road. We have got to improve business. We've got to give them incentives. We have to say, here's a reason to be here. And we can do that through TIF districting. We can do that through business reform. So if you want to set up shop in a community, you say, okay, here's the area we're going to set up. We would like a tax abatement on that. You pay my property taxes for the first 5 years. Then we'll go ahead and pick that tab up. So in 5 years down the road, that business is paying taxes in that community, supplying jobs to that community, and having people live in that community. As a result, property taxes go down per capita because we have more people. More people are paying into the school district. It works. Principled conservative Republican ideas work every day of the week, I promise you. Thank you.
Thank you. We must pass legislation that allows businesses to profit. We need to pass legislation that requires bills, and I believe there's one currently in legislation that requires bills to have a downstate analysis to them, to see what kind of damage or impact they have on downstate businesses in Illinois. If we had that, I think we would find out that some of the bills that are getting pushed onto us from the Chicago area, again, may work in Chicago, but they are devastating to downstate Illinois. A lot of the things that we talked about in the previous question also applies to this question. We've got to have a lot of reforms. We've got to reform our minimum wage. We've got to reform our workman's comp. There's other reforms that we got to take. We need to incentivize businesses to come here, and one way they do that is they judge that by the number of jobs it creates or the number of jobs it saves. We got to come up with a way that we expand on that, and that we determine that we decide that those incentives come to areas that have lower incomes. We can't just base it on the number of jobs that they will obtain or retain. We got to base those incentives based on lower income areas to where we can bring that money to downstate area instead of putting it all into our Chicago areas at the north. I agree with John. We need to get some more infrastructure. We got to fix our infrastructure, because the way to get businesses to thrive is to put people in those businesses shopping. In order to do that, we need more people coming to our area. We need to expand US Route 50. We need to increase our parks. We need to dedicate some money to our state parks to bring tourism and revenue here. We have a bridge down in White County that connects to Indiana that's been closed for years. We need to put infrastructure in to get people to our area to shop in our businesses. When we do that, our businesses will grow, our prosperity will grow, and we will have growth like we've never seen, and we'll have people moving back to this area. Thank you.
Next question, what is your view on prevailing wages and how it affects the progress in small towns when we are forced to pay 2 to 3 times more to do a job? And I think it'd be Andy, you answer this one first. That's okay.
Well, I've spoke about this in other forums. I think prevailing wage harms us in this area of downstate. there's often times that we spend 3 to 4 times more on projects within our area because we as government are required to pay salaries much higher than the average base salary in our area. I go back to the time that, for example, I was looking to do some cosmetic works to our sheriff's office. We were trying to improve the appearance of our lobby of our sheriff's office, so I contacted a local business to see what it would cost to come and do this work. They came into and gave me an estimate and priced it at around $1,000. That's what they would have charged anyone else in our area to do this business. Within 1 hour, I got a phone call telling me that they no longer could, the bid that they had given me no longer was acceptable because they forgot to add the prevailing wage. That $1,000 some dollars went up to almost $4,000 to do a simple project that we were trying to do in our sheriff's office. Obviously, we didn't have the $4,000. We could have handled the $1,000, but we couldn't handle the $4,000 to do that. So I believe our prevailing wages we need to come up with laws to where downstate is regulated differently than upstate, if that's what they feel they need upstate. We need to find ways that the salaries of projects that we bid on are based on local wages and not wages possibly that you're making in Chicago. These things have got to continue to be lowered because all this does is drive our property taxes up. Anytime that we're spending 3 to 4 times more than we have to on projects, and this goes all the way across, whether it's building a new school that would be $3 to $4, $5 million more than it would have to be, or even repairing our roads on a daily basis, where the value of those roads, we could repair so many more roads if we was basing it on our local average salaries instead of prevailing wage. Thank you.
For well, what Andy was talking about, cosmetics work that's just minor, then that we shouldn't have to have prevailing wage for that. But the people who work for the prevailing wage jobs are skilled workers. And I know from experience, I've been in the construction business now for 40 years. If you try to save money building a building by using cheap labor or building it yourself without knowing what you're doing, it's going to end up costing you considerably more than what it would have cost to have it done professionally. This could be plumbing, electrical, the building out a square, walls inches off. It just varies. I've worked on several of these that people have tried to build themselves or do cheaper. You're losing money to try to save money. You get what you pay for. And another thing too, these workers, they buy houses, they pay taxes, they raise families, but we've got to take care of our skilled labor because the majority of them, a lot of them, only get to work 6, 7 months out of the year. They are not full-time employees. And our road crews out here, what do you think it'd be like for them building a road, sending out an inexperienced crew with all that machinery and everything? We've got to have skilled labor. Thank you.
Well, I'll keep this kind of simple. I'm against prevailing wage. I'm sorry, I don't see any reason why, if I'm putting up a structure and it costs X amount of dollars, why you, the taxpayers, have to be put on a hook for that same structure at 3 or 4 times whatever that costs to put up. And you have to flip that bill. So you've got one building going up for one cost, and just because it's prevailing wage, you have another building going up for a completely different cost, for a much higher cost. And who's stuck holding that bag? The taxpayer. You, every one of us. So I am against prevailing wage. When you look at those laws that impact downstate Illinois, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. That's an old saying, right, folks? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Well, not in Illinois. What's good for the goose is not good for the gander. There's a set of bills that's being proposed right now that we need to take a really good look at. Because it's time to separate us from Chicago. It's time to take that next step and leave those liberal policies and radical spending out of Illinois. It's time to put our best foot forward and say, no, we're done, we're fed up. We're going to separate ourselves from Chicago, and we're going to take our initiatives as conservative Republicans and have good ideas and start to do fundamental reforms. There's a couple of bills. HB 5029 would require any impact, financial or otherwise, to downstate communities to be disclosed before lawmakers take a floor vote. HB 5030 would require anyone who proposes a new rule in the General Assembly that would negatively affect downstate Illinois to consider specific methods for reducing the impact of the rulemaking and provide an opportunity to participate in the rulemaking process before or during the notice period through the use of specific techniques. Okay, folks, what that means is we're going to be able to stand up for what's right. What that means is we're going to be able to say, no, we're going to be able to put up a fight against this radical spending. So I do support these two bills. Thank you.
Obviously, the state of Illinois does not live within its means. What can you do to affect frivolous and wasteful spending?
It's me again. We need spending caps. It is clear career politicians lack the fiscal discipline to keep spending under control. One of the first things I want to do when I'm elected to represent each and every one of you is to go up there and try to read a couple definitions to some of those lawmakers and say, this is a definition of a surplus, and this is called a checkbook. You see what we have to do? We have to balance this. You know, our debits and credits, they have to make sure we have money to spend. Because I want there to be a surplus in Illinois. I want to do what Indiana has done, not only on the financial end of it, but also on the moral end of it. I want to fight against radical abortion legislation, and I want to get our fiscal house in order. We need to balance that checkbook. Because economic growth is the number one answer to our problems. Bringing businesses back in. Reforms. Electing reform candidates. Principled conservative Republicans that are ready to reform Illinois. That are ready to take that next step and start saying the word no. That are ready to say, I am done working across the aisle. I am done compromising. I'm done giving in on our principled conservative values. Because what has that gotten us? Absolutely nothing. Bruce Rauner voted for HB 40, abortion. Got us nowhere. 20 Republicans, our own party was caucused on the gas tax last year. Where did that get us? Nowhere. But it saved some Metro East Democrats from having to vote yes on it. That's called working across the aisle, folks. That's called giving in. And I've had it. I'm done with that. I'm here to stand up for what's right, for each and every one of you, to have good, meaningful spending reforms. Because that's what we need. We can't give in anymore. We can't be complacent in the old status quo. We've got to move forward. Thank you.
All right, I think the greatest thing that we can do with frivolous and wasteful spending is to identify it. We have to take that budget, we have to go through it line item by line item, and we have to identify that frivolous and wasteful spending. Once we identify it, we've got to aggressively call it out publicly. Even if that means on the House floor and embarrassing certain people on the floor to where they see and can acknowledge the wasteful and frivolous spending. Once we do that, we've got to find areas that we can cut from that spending, and we've got, as Republicans, got to offer an alternative budget to that spending. We've got to show them another route, and often in Springfield that becomes difficult with some Republicans. Some Republicans like the extra spending that they may have up north, but we have got to hold their feet to the fire, make them come back to our platform to where we can maintain our conservative values and eliminate all of the frivolous and wasteful spending that we see in our budgets. This can be unpopular at times, and there will probably be people upset by requiring us to stick to our values when it comes to our different spending ideas. When that is occurring, we have to continue to stand up and fight back, even if that means pushing back on leadership. When we do that, though, I think that we do that in a respectful and civil way. Oftentimes, I believe that we should do that in maybe even private hearings. But we have got to convince those Republicans who often side with some of this wasteful spending that they got to come back to our side of the table and start negotiating budgets where we have to make hard, tough decisions and make cuts instead of continue spending as we do. Thank you.
The state of Illinois has the fewest number of state workers per capita of any state in the nation. Where can you cut? Do we cut health care, mental health, children and family services? No, we can't do that because they're already cut to the bone and suffering severely. Or mental health, we've got to expand it tremendously. Do we cut our roads and bridges? No, we can't do that either. Do we cut out the Department of Conservation, Department of Agriculture, close our colleges? No, we can't do that either. We actually need to spend more on our colleges, and everyone is screaming, cut, 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 cut some more. And, you know, but where do you cut? The Department of Corrections, we tried to have early release for some of the nonviolent offenders, and the outrage grew over that. The question's been asked many, many, many times to state legislatures and senators on where can we cut. When that question is asked, there's been no answers, just questions. Where can we cut? There has been no questions at all. We're cut to the bone, is basically where we're at. We need more funding to better fund some of our services, like especially mental health. Thank you.
In the past several years, methamphetamine use has ravaged not only our local communities, but communities throughout southern Illinois and other Midwest and southern states. Methamphetamine has particularly affected rural communities and the poorest among us. Methamphetamine is now cheaper and more available than ever. As it continues to pour over our southern U.S. border, methamphetamine is also markedly different than typical opioids in its effects on users and how it is treated. What plans do you have to combat the methamphetamine epidemic in our district?
This is a subject of the meth that's pretty close to me. 20 years ago, lost a stepdaughter because of drugs. And just a year ago last summer, my girlfriend's grandson, Zach, was dropped off at the emergency room at Effingham, pulled out of a truck, dumped up against the side of the building, overdosed. So I've lost two, what you might say, close family members to this drug. In the 90s, people were stealing anhydrous and manufacturing drugs in crank houses and this, that, and the other. But times has changed. A good comparison would be to compare it to Walmart. Walmart has stores and distribution centers, but they're not headquartered here. They're headquartered someplace else. The drug cartels are based in Mexico, but they have warehouses throughout the United States and what you might call stores in our area. We need Andy and the law enforcement to take these places out. We need the federal government to work with Mexico to take the cartels out. We need stiffer sentences for these drug offenders that are running these stores. It's a family problem and a community problem. For the users, we need rehabilitation. We could have halfway houses sponsored by churches, and we could go back to the 3 times you're out. An offender would have 2 times to a halfway house or rehabilitation. The 3rd time, they go to jail.
This issue is a major issue, and we need to tackle it with in a major way. John, I'm sorry for your loss and what you went through. Okay. I agree on this particular issue. We need to have help. We need people that have that substance abuse addiction. We need to help them. Okay. We need to give them rehabilitation, and I prefer to do that with faith-based, so they can get to know God better, they can get to know Jesus better, and they can heal as a person and get away from that substance abuse. This goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier about the mental health care facility that's opening up in Mount Carmel. They're going to have 24 to 32 beds. It's going to be a 20,000 square foot building, $5 to $7 million deal with 50 jobs. And they are going to work on substance abuse. That's good. We need that type of help in this district. We need people that are willing to help and get those people back on their feet, because we cannot just get through that through incarceration. We can't just, unfortunately, put all these people that find their way in a bad way, and we can't spend our way through this through incarceration. We can't do it. We need to help those people. We need to get them back on their feet so they're just not continually cycled out. A good friend of mine, he's a police officer in Effingham, and he tells me a lot of stories about the methamphetamine problem. And he'll routinely tell me, Adam, I'll get to a home third or fourth time. And by the third or fourth time, that person has overdosed and they've deceased. Because they weren't able to get any help. Because they weren't able to get that next bit of help that they needed to get their lives in order. At that same token, we need to secure our borders. That's so very important. We do need to go after the people that are circulating these drugs. That's very important as well. Thank you.
It's all right, I may need some more time on this one. But anyway, from serving in law enforcement for 26 years, we battled the methamphetamine problem for many years in the early 90s, or late 90s, early 2000s. There was legislation that was passed that helped us with the control of pseudoephedrine and other ingredients used to make. Those were positive legislative avenues we took. We were able to place a lot of people in jail locally in our county. We sent a lot of people federally for long terms. But honestly, you cannot legislate recovery. We have had multiple people that we went through the system multiple times in multiple rehabs. An individual just will not react and do the recovery until they are ready. They have to be in a position in their life they are ready to receive that treatment. I do believe that we need to offer treatment to people. We've tried drug court type of scenarios where we can offer alternatives to people and have a little more strict control over them. But I believe that incarceration is an answer. We've seen it make a difference in Richland County, in this district, over the years when they were manufacturing here. But I do agree that we have to support our president in securing that southern border to stop the methamphetamine coming in, because it is right. The methamphetamine we're dealing with today is not being manufactured here. It is being brought into here. And the cartel are here. They're in our area. So we got to keep fighting this drug, even through incarceration. I would like to see more incarcerated programs to where they get treatment while they're inside and while they're incarcerated. To where they are in there for a long-term period of time, because they didn't get this problem overnight. It didn't happen in 30 days. We're not going to treat them in 30 days. And I've had many parents tell me that they would prefer their children to be incarcerated in jail than to find them dead in the home one day. So if we can keep them in those facilities, keep that drug from other people, we can save lives by doing so.
Next question, is it realistic to expect any change in how poorly the government is run?
The simple answer is no. Until we rid Springfield of the corruption and unethical behavior that we see on a daily basis, one person holds all the power in Springfield, Mike Madigan. We have got to see Mike Madigan go. If Mike Madigan is running the state, the corruption and poor government will continue. He must go. We must pass legislation that requires a cooling off period of at least 5 years or greater before you can start lobbying or be a consultant once you leave the legislation. We've got to find other ethics reforms. We should not be lobbying or being a consultant while we're serving as a legislator. We must continue to push petitions for fair maps until the voters can actually pick their representatives instead of their representatives picking them. We will not change a lot of the way government is run in Springfield. We've got to push those fair maps. We have got to push for term limits. And I will tell you right now, within the first 30 days of being sworn in, I will try to propose a bill and push a bill through for term limits for our representatives in our senates in Springfield. We have got to push this type of legislation. If we don't clean up the ethics and the unethical behavior and the corruption in Springfield, we will never be able to expect our government to run more efficiently than it currently is. Thank you.
The answer is yes. Last year, we seen a big improvement. We had a balanced budget. We got a capital bill. We got legalization of marijuana that just in its first month gave us $10.5 million of tax revenue. Our debt is being reduced. We got the minimum wage passed. And 4 years of our previous administration, where we had 3 years of no budget, it's going to take us a while to climb out of that, but we are climbing out of it. And it is realistic. It is happening now. We are climbing out of that deficit. For term limits, we have term limits at the voting booth. And that's the way I feel on that. If we need experience in the House, we need experience in the Senate. If we don't have that experience, then we are controlled by nothing but lobbyists. And we don't want that at all. So that's my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Can we expect change in how poorly the government is run? If we get good reform candidates elected to the state of Illinois, yes, we can. I know my opponent just mentioned that he wants to have the cool-off period for 5 years, and I completely agree with that. But I'd like everybody to check the record on that and see who was the first one to say that. Who was the first one to propose that 5-year cool-off period? I'd like to also bring up that I'm backed by reform-minded candidates. I'd like to say that I do have the endorsement, and I'm very, very, very proud to say this endorsement, of your current state representative, Darren Bailey. And make no difference about it, what you're hearing tonight is an attempt at an establishment politician to discuss reforms that is simply not true. Darren Bailey ran on the reform ticket 2 years ago. I am running on the same ticket that Darren Bailey ran on. I am running against the same people that Darren Bailey ran on. And if you want to ask yourself this question, and this is an important question, folks, who's likely to raise taxes? Who's likely to give in? Who's likely to compromise? Me or my opponent? Darren Bailey's endorsed me. Brad Hellbrook's endorsed me. Blaine Wilmhauer's endorsed me. Chris Miller has endorsed me. All these gentlemen know what it means to be a true conservative. My opponent? Who's behind him? The establishment. Again, 5-to-1, money spent. It's hard as a reform candidate to gain money because the PACs and the big money in Springfield don't want to see me get elected because they want to go back to that status quo. They want to go back to that business as usual. So make no mistake about it. Andy hires Adam Niemark. Darren Bailey, David Rice. Same election, ladies and gentlemen. Same election. So please remember that when you're in the voting booth on March 17th.
Our next question, you've heard kind of a theme throughout the answers tonight, but what specifically are your views on the minimum wage increase?
I am completely against this minimum wage increase. As I said before, what is good for the goose is not good for the gander in Southern Illinois. We have a situation where they want to pass this $15 an hour minimum wage. They want to make sure that businesses are going to leave the state. They want to take those businesses and they want to take them out of the state because then they can have more control over us in downstate Illinois. Plain and simple. It's about control. It's about the Democrats and the left keeping control in the House and Senate. So what do we do? What do we do as principled conservative Republicans in Southern Illinois? We vote. We vote. There's an example. There's 2.1 million FOID card holders in the state of Illinois. I believe that is just a little over half of the ballots that were cast in the governor's race last year. If we voted our principled conservative values, we can take Illinois back. We don't have to cave. We don't have to reach across that aisle and say, hey, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? No, people will come to us. They'll gravitate towards what's right. It's so important that we do that we as principled conservative Republicans bring God back into the Illinois legislature, that we stand up for what's right. People will gravitate towards that. Principled Republican conservatism works every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Trust me, we can turn this state around, but we need to do it together. We can't do it standing on an island by ourselves. We've got to stand together, rally around our conservative beliefs, and get the job done. Thank you.
Boy, didn't that take a weird turn just a minute ago. I'm not sure who the establishment is. Don't know any of them. Haven't been with any of them. Won't even go there, I don't think. So those are the things I told you, the things I believe in. Regarding the minimum wage, I'm certainly, we've talked about it before, I'm certainly against any government-mandated minimum wage. I believe employers know what they can pay and what they cannot pay their employees. I firmly believe that government cannot successfully legislate jobs, nor can they legislate people out of poverty. I just don't believe that's possible. I think when you raise that minimum wage, the prices of everything raises as well. In my math, maybe it's the Common Core math now, I don't know, but in my math, when you raise people to $15 an hour and the prices raise equally, that does not leave you more money in your pocket in the end. You still do not have any more money, other than there may be less people employed because businesses may not be able to employ as many people having to pay that higher wage. They'll have to lay people off, or obviously they raise their taxes much higher or raise their prices much higher. Doesn't matter if it's even the transportation of the milk, all that you transport, the cost goes up, that goes up. Everything goes up when you raise this minimum wage. And it does not equate to having more money in your pocket at the end of the day. So in short, minimum wage increases should be more in line with the average of area local wages, as I explained earlier. I would love to see laws and policies passed, as we've mentioned earlier, that gives downstate Illinois the ability to set our own minimum wage where we feel, let our local officials set it where we feel it's most appropriate for our average wage in our area. We cannot continue raising this. We cannot continue to keep losing jobs. We got to fight back on this type of legislation. Thank you.
$15 an hour works. It lifts people out of poverty. If both husband and wife work, they'll be able to buy a home, be able to buy a newer vehicle, contribute to the community, pay taxes, be able to raise a family without food stamps. 3 happy, well-paid employees will outwork 5 unhappy, underpaid employees. This last Sunday, I had a conversation with my son-in-law in Spokane, Washington. In Spokane, it's $13.50 now. A good friend of his had 3 restaurants, and he was afraid he was going to have to close 2 of them because the minimum wage was going up. You know what happened? He's got 5 now. This minimum wage will work. People cannot live on $10 an hour or less. You can't pay rent. You can't pay your utilities. The money is not there. People have to have a living wage. And to be truthful with you, that $15 an hour should be 20. And that's my feelings on that. Thank you.
It has been said by someone that they owed nothing on a hospital bill because of having Medicaid benefits, and stated this is why they don't work. What are things you can do to help motivate people like this to not limit themselves to seek full-time employment with full benefits rather than rely on Medicaid benefits?
Medicaid is a very complex issue. If somebody was to work 37 and a half hours a week at 10 and a quarter an hour, or 9 and a quarter an hour, they're kicked off. They're making too much money. But they're not making enough money to buy health insurance. You know, there's people that abuse this system. 98% or 99% of the people do not abuse it, but you hear about that 1 or 2% constantly, and that's where a lot of this comes from. We're not going to be able to really control that 1 or 2%. We're going to have that in every program, every job. There's people that just want to scam everything. But we cannot have people that's got cancer going through radiation, chemotherapy, having to work to pay for their health care. But what we have to do is we've got to raise the level. It's got to be raised so that people can work more and make more dollars and still yet qualify. Thank you.
I think we all can agree that people having a hard time economically do deserve help with medical costs, but at the same time, it's a system that has been abused and continues to be abused. I read a few years ago that Maine was enacting reforms on the Medicaid system, and some of the reforms had to do with working so many hours a week, okay? So if you're an able-bodied individual, you're not just sitting down, watching TV all day, and getting all these benefits, okay? I do believe when people need help, we need to help them. There's no question about that. If anybody ever needs anything, we need to be there to help if they truly need it. But there's all too many people that do abuse the system. So we need to pass meaningful reforms that give people an opportunity. And also, it doesn't just stop with the meaningful reforms and saying, I'm making you work because you're able-bodied. You can either go, take a job doing this or put so many hours into community service. I believe when you get somebody moving, when you get somebody productive, there is pride, their dignity is preserved, and they feel like they're a part of something. They feel like they're a part of something better than themselves, and they have that pride. It's just, when you're sitting down not doing anything, when you're sitting down being lazy, you don't feel good about it. You feel like, hey man, what am I doing? What can I do more? I need to get up and be productive. That's something that man right there has taught me over the years. Get up, be productive. Get up and be productive. That's something I remember my dad always telling me. So we do need reforms on this front. We do need to get people back to work, back on their feet, because it'll give them that sense of pride and accomplishment. Thank you.
I strongly believe that we need to assist those that are incapable of helping themselves. We have elderly, disabled, the young. We have to provide programs that will help individuals that are incapable of providing for themselves. Most of my adult life I've done that. I've spent 26 years in law enforcement helping people, sometimes even putting my own life in harm's way to do so. I equally agree that benefits should be temporary, though, to assist those who are capable of taking care of themselves, but find themselves in periods of time of hopelessness or helplessness. We have got to give them programs where they can get back onto their feet. They have to be programs, though, that are not equal to or less than what they would make as a working wage. We cannot give benefits to someone to whereas they're making more money on those benefits than they would if they went and made a working wage at a local business. I talk to business owners all the time that will employ people. They will show up for a week or two, and the work is too tough, too hard, too laborious, and they quit because they can draw more on welfare than they can if they're employed and working in that business. We have got to create programs that do not allow for that. We've got to create programs that we got to give these people benefits. We got to give them help, but it cannot be at the expense of them not wanting to pursue employment, and join the workforce and get benefits in that way. We always must continue, as people get jobs, maybe they're lower income jobs, we continue giving incentives to where they can have child care and health care until they can get a higher earning job. We also need to support our president. We have to have, he's trying to do some welfare reform, drug testing, requirement of work. We also must be an American citizen. Why should you not be an American citizen in order to draw welfare? This state allows more than it should in welfare, and those are the types of programs where we can find frivolous spending to save. We didn't mention frivolous spending earlier. Our FOID card section, we can save money there to give money to other places. Thank you. That's me.
We've heard some statistics tonight and some of the answers about the numbers of people leaving the state of Illinois. What do you plan to do about the number of people leaving the state due to the rise in taxes?
Okay, we must work to lower the state tax burden. Within the first 30 days, I will submit a bill that reduces the state income tax. That's if the graduated tax don't pass. If it doesn't pass, we're going to submit a bill to try to reduce the tax. If we do that, we've got to aggressively, as we said earlier, identify frivolous wasted spending so then we can use the money that we find in those savings to provide services that we need to provide. We cannot get rid of needed services. I strongly believe that we have to provide for people that cannot provide for themselves. But we will identify and pursue legislation that will cut burdensome regulations that are stifling the growth of the economy. We talked about that earlier. We talked about workman's comp reform. We talked about the minimum wage. We can keep going on and on about those types of programs that we have to look at and control so we can bring pro-business and pro-growth back to our district. We will look at providing incentives for the consolidation of local governments or reduce the number of governing bodies. We have way too many different types of local governments. We've got to consolidate that. If not consolidation, we got to at least allow them to share equipment and share resources. We will work with all entities involved to sit at the table and come up with bipartisan solutions to fix or reduce the unfunded pension crisis. Everybody has to be involved in this. We can't just take it on as one side. We have to have all disciplines. Our unions, our Democrat friends, our Republican friends, we got to have everybody sitting at the table to figure out this solution because we all understand, even those on the other side, understand that this is not something we can continue. We must show up and begin immediately working on behalf of the citizens of the 109th District so we can change policy to keep more people in our state and paying less taxes to keep them here. Thank you.
Well, we need to pass a progressive tax. Our current tax rate is 4.95, and we are the lowest in our surrounding area. Wisconsin has a tax rate, income tax rate of 6.27. Kentucky has a 5% tax rate, but 8 of their biggest cities have an extra 2%, which actually brings up to the biggest population of Kentucky, 7%. Indiana, by the time you add on city and county taxes, is 6.61. Missouri, 5.4. Iowa, which has a progressive tax, the lowest rate is 5.63, and that's for anything 24,000 and under. It goes up to eventually 9%. Property taxes in Southern Illinois are not as high as the state average. The state average is 2.31. Here in Clay County, our average tax rate is $1.60. Richmond and Wabash have the highest rates at 172 and 173 respectively. Wherever you go, you're going to have taxes. It doesn't make any difference. Across the state line, go from one side of the country to the other, there's going to be taxes. Florida doesn't have an income tax, but a lot of their tax money is derived from this state for tourism. Every time you go to Florida, you are helping them not to have an income tax. Thank you.
Well, wouldn't it be great if we didn't have income tax? When that paychecks go up, that'd be wonderful. We're like Florida or Tennessee or Texas to get things back on track. And I do believe that if you eliminated income tax, people would have more money in their pockets. They'd spend more. You'd have more tax revenue coming in as a direct result of that. It's just basic Reaganomics, folks. If you cut people's taxes, they're going to have more money in their pocket. They're going to spend more. So guess what? Revenue goes up. People come back to the state. Again, we have more people per capita. That's going to give us that opportunity to get Illinois back on track. But to answer the question definitively, for starters, I won't raise taxes, even with spending reforms. I have no plans to reach across that aisle unless they come to me and say, Adam, that's a great idea. We're on board 100%. Great. Welcome aboard. I'm glad that you've come over to our conservative way of thinking. Let's get things done. But I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to yield. Because Illinois has the highest combination of state and local taxes in the nation. Sorry to be a little redundant here, but it has to be said. Illinois has the second highest property taxes in the nation. We also have the third highest gas tax in the nation. That gas tax, I brought it up before. There's 20 Republicans that crossed the aisle and voted for it to save a couple Democrats in Metro East. There's your working across the aisle, folks. There's your working with your Democrat friends. It doesn't get the job done. We need tax relief. In addition, I am for an amendment to fix the pensions. 25 cents of every dollar goes into that pension system. We have got to amend the Constitution to fix the pension system, to save pensions down the road. We can't do it without it. And don't let anybody tell you that we can, because it flat out won't happen. Thank you.
Our final question tonight, how do you plan on moving forward with your agenda with the Democratic House?
Me again, there you go. Well, I'm all about term limits. We need to set term limits. I did term limit myself very early on in this campaign at 12 years. So after 12 years, I'm going to go back and find something else to do. Hopefully, Dad can hang on for 12 years and maybe I can take a job with him. Maybe about 70-something. I don't know, he's laughing at me. But, we need to close the door on lobbyists. I know we've brought that up in the past. Honestly, what needs to happen is we need to get conservative-minded individuals. We need to get our Republican Party to consolidate under the platform and stop placating to the Democrats. Plain and simple. We cannot give in any longer. That's what's got us in the state that we're in. Rauner voted for the sanctuary state bill. Now we've got all kinds of bad policies related to that. There's an Illinois Department of Corrections. I had a press release that I put out today. Illinois Department of Corrections was supposed to, under ICE, transfer illegal immigrants who have committed felonies to a detention center so they can figure out the next step in dealing with these people, okay? That was ignored as the beginning of this year. That's being ignored. So what you have is you have, and these aren't just guys that are out there just, being, unfortunately, falling into a bad crowd or, getting addicted to meth and getting just going down the wrong road. These are murderers and rapists that are illegal immigrants that are in the Illinois Department of Corrections that after they serve, they're being released into our districts. It's going on in Kankakee. It's going on right now. We've got to stop this. And that's a direct result, ladies and gentlemen, of Democratic policies and placating to the left. Those days are gone. Status quo is over. It's time to reform Illinois. Thank you.
I first off want to start by saying that I respect what Darren Bailey has went up and tried to do in Springfield. I also respect what David Rice went up to Springfield and tried to do. Both are good men, and I don't want to sit up here and disparage either one of them for being involved in politics. David Rice made a vote that most didn't agree with, and he paid for that with his job. He's no longer our representative. But I do believe in order to make Springfield work, that we have to work with the other side. I've never met a man in my life that I could get right up nose to nose to him and poke him in the chest and expect him to listen or want to do anything that I'm saying. Normally what happens is the fists start flying. And that's what I think we have seen in the recent past. I mean, I appreciate the votes, and I support the votes. And when I started running for this race, first person I called was Darren. And I told him I 100% support every vote you made. I just don't necessarily support the tactics on which it was done. I think that we have to sit down at a table. I think that we have to talk. Does not mean that we have to compromise on our values. Does not mean in the end that we have to vote for a bill that we don't like. But we have to sit and negotiate. We've got to sit at that table and negotiate. We've got to listen, we've got to respect, and we've got to engage the other side in this legislation. If we don't, they start swinging and we get what we got. The worst abortion bill we've ever seen in this state. The highest taxes in 1 year that we've ever had to pay. How is that reform? How are we reforming anything when we're paying more in taxes today than we were a few months ago? The abortion, the tax on our assault weapons. We have got to communicate with the other side without compromising our values, and we can do that. It's simple. We just have to have a conversation. Thank you.
Just a second. We'll face our technical difficulties.
Sorry. Are you learning anything? Wrap my head around it. I know, I thought the same thing. I'm
Well, some of those Democrats up there in Springfield are friends of mine. I'm acquainted with quite a few of them and spoken with a lot of them. They are all willing to work to help Southern Illinois. And I will work with them, not against them. We are one Illinois, the 18th largest economy in the world. We're diverse, but we need to work together from one end of the state to the other. I'm an old-style Democrat. I believe in negotiation and working across party lines. Just like those great Republicans, Everett Dirksen, Charles Percy, and Judy Barr Topinka, as well as Democrats like Paul Simon, Ken Gray, and my very, very good friend, Glenn Pichard. We need to work together, all of us, not this squabbling that's been going on. Well, everybody knows what's going on, and it's not the way it used to be. It should come back to the way that it once was. We've got to work together. Thank you.
Before the debate, each of the candidates also drew numbers for who would go first, second, and third for the closing. And so at this time, each candidate will be given the opportunity to give a 3-minute closing statement, and we'll begin with Adam Nieberg.
Thank you. Thank you, Flora Chamber of Commerce, for putting this on. Thank you for each and every one of you for being here this evening to listen to the differences between the candidates. I hope you feel informed. I hope that you're able to make a good, clear decision on March 17th. Oh, and you can vote early, too. Yeah. So please do that as well. So when you go into that voting booth, just remember what was discussed tonight. Remember how important it is to reform Illinois. Remember how we need to keep things going in the right direction. And the last time I checked, Darren does listen. He does care. He does want to reform Illinois. He does want to keep things going in the right direction. But he doesn't do it by giving in. He's a good man. He's a good Christian. He's a good husband. He's a good father. And he is a great politician. And I am honored to have his endorsement. But he's not going to give in on his principal conservative values. He's not throwing punches. He's having those discussions. He's trying to get people to come over to our way of thinking because it is right, it is true, and it is just. But again, he won't do it by placating to the left. He won't do it by giving in on his principal conservative values. He remembers God in each vote that he makes. He remembers each one of us in each vote that he makes. He is the most transparent state representative, and quite honestly, most next to Trump, right real close, but transparent politician I have ever seen. Check his Facebook. He's keeping each and every one of us informed. He's doing an outstanding job. I am honored to have his endorsement. Again, Illinois needs reformed. Illinois is worth saving. I wouldn't be standing here today. I wouldn't be putting my family through this if I didn't firmly believe in my convictions. And yes, I will listen. I will be there. But I will not give in. I will not placate. I will not compromise. I will think of each and every one of you. And together we can reform Illinois. And when Darren is in the Senate and I'm in the House, you can expect great things. You can expect us to stand up for what's right. To trust us, not to give in, not to cave. Because ladies and gentlemen, when we start giving in, when we start caving, that leads us to higher taxes. That leads us to radical abortion. And that leads us to high spending. People leave. They don't want to be here anymore. How can we compromise with the left when that's their agenda? They don't want anything to do with us. We've got to stand up for what's right. So please remember that on March 17th, which also is my birthday, coincidentally. And what else is funny? It's Darren's birthday, too. So please vote reform. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here tonight. You took the time out of your night to show up. That we appreciate that and listen to the candidates. I'm up here just to ask for your vote. I want your support. I'm basing mine on my experience. I've spent 26 years in law enforcement fighting for people for most of my adult life. I want to continue to fight for you in the 109th District. I agree that we have to change this state. We just disagree on the way that has to be done. I also agree that we cannot compromise on our core values, on abortion, on taxes, on the Second Amendment. All those things that we hold dear, I agree, we can't compromise on. But we have to be able to sit down and talk. We heard earlier that we weren't going to do anything unless they come to me on a talk we just could. That's not going to accomplish anything. We are dealing with the most extreme liberal Senate and House that we've probably seen in Illinois. How did we get there? Why did we get there? Where did that come from? It come from sticking our finger in their chest and poking them. And they started swinging back. It's not us swinging back, it's them swinging back. They're swinging back and giving us legislation. We talk about not having higher taxes. Did we get higher taxes last year? I think we did. And we talk about abortion. Did we get a horrible abortion bill last year? I think we did. I mean, where is that coming from? It's coming from not having the ability to sit at a table with somebody and talk. We have got to talk. We have got to be civil. We got to respect one another. We live in a very diverse state. It's a very big state. From top to bottom, it's different. We have got to find ways that we can speak to individuals without being disrespectful, if you will. But that does not mean that we compromise. That does not mean that we say, okay, we're gonna vote for your higher taxes. We're just not gonna do that. We can't. We can't continue down that road, but we can still talk with them. We can still talk to them and find areas where we can agree on and get legislation passed that benefits us down here. Maybe they will listen if we start having a conversation with them. We cannot continue down the road that we've been going down. So yes, I do want your support. I hope I get your support. I think Darren Bailey is a fine man. Everything that Adam just said about him, I agree with. I think he is top notch. I think I am as well. All of those things. We just have to have ability to have conversations. And we can do that. We can make this happen. We can change the state around one individual at a time until we get more conservative across the state. So we in Southern Illinois do not have to live by the policies of Chicago. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the hospital for having us all here tonight. If I'm elected, I want to work for all of the people of the district, as well as all of Southern Illinois. One way that we can do this, we're sitting on a gold mine and we do not know it. We've got to unleash it. We can create jobs all over Southern Illinois. We can put factories in every village, every town, every city. We've got to first get broadband internet and our roads. We can bring back, farmers are hurting right now because of the tariffs. And we can, more or less what you might say, let farmers grow the hemp, which is more profitable than corn or beans. They can take that down the road, baled up, to a hemp manufacturing plant. 25,000 different products. You can't believe the number of things that can be made from it. Steel, 600 times stronger. Plastic, 600 times stronger than steel. We could manufacture plastics here, send them to Mexico, comes back as a motor for your vehicle. We can send fabric, cloth to China, Thailand, wherever, it comes back as clothes. We send raw materials to those countries, it comes back as shoes. We can do that here in Southern Illinois. Instead of selling corn and beans, we sell products from hemp. Henry Ford made a hemp car. One of his very first cars was made completely 100% out of hemp. Hemp went out of production and was outlawed because of its relative marijuana. They are related, but not the same. There's a guy in California right now building a 1957 Chevy with a 3D printer machine. He's going to drive it across the country this summer, fueled on hemp. Even the paint is hemp. There's millions of things that can be made out of it. They haven't even uncovered yet what can be made from it. Cardboard, paper, OSB board. It's endless. And those factories can be here in Southern Illinois, paying people $15 an hour, and the factories will come. Thank you.
Thank you again to Clay County Hospital for hosting the event tonight. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing it. We've been holding our applause, but let's give our candidates a round of applause for them. Thank you to each of you for your commitment to public service. Thank you for being here tonight. We wish each of you the best of luck in the upcoming election. And this concludes the town hall meeting. Thank you again for attending. Have a great night.